Democrats in Congress are against us. This must change, Congressman. This must change.
And joining us now is Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey of Maryland. He sits on the House Appropriations and Ethics Committee. And Congressman, you held a town hall yesterday with more than 900 attendees. There was a lot of motion there. What was your takeaway, and what actions are you going to take to address your constituents' concerns?
Well, I think I was the last clip that you played there. People were angry, they're furious, really, and rightly so. I mean, they've been attacked by the Trump administration. People have been forced out of jobs that they've been doing well for sometimes decades. People on the other end of that are not getting the government services that they'd like and need to have. And for no apparent reason. So there's a lot of frustration with that. I think there's a lot of frustration, too, with the inability to stop Trump as quickly as people would like. So we talked a lot about the court cases last night, and frankly, they are going very well. I think they put the Trump administration on their heels to some extent with all of these injunctions that have been put in place, and now some orders to reinstate. I think in the latest one, 28,000 employees who were fired. But, you know, for people who, you know, the wolf is at the door, they're about to lose their house, their livelihoods are at stake. There's concern, there's anger, and there's frustration. Certainly
there's concern with DOJ and what's happening, but there was a lot of concern about Democrats not doing enough.
Yeah.
You heard that from these constituents saying that Democrats aren't fighting for them, that Democrats are being too polite. This moment in particular stuck out to me. Let's play it.
Thank you for being polite with us, but when it comes to fighting these fights, we need you to be a little bit less polite, a little bit more hell no instead of a little bit no.
Fair enough.
And there may be a time when you and other congresspeople need to do civil disobedience. You need to be arrested.
Sure.
And I will go with you. I will stand next to you and be arrested.
And I was going to ask if you were going to be willing to be arrested. But I'm going to ask you a different question.
I'd be willing to be arrested again. Yes.
Yeah.
I've done it before.
So you're willing to be arrested? What law were you willing to break to get arrested?
Well, that goes all the way back to South Africa and the protests that we did. The first one I did was when I was in college, and we shut down an administrative building. But
what are you willing to do? Are you willing to do something now to risk getting arrested?
Well, potentially, but I think the key is to make sure it's strategic and well done. I mean, if you look at the civil rights movement, for example, they were very strategic in how they targeted the points where they were going to conduct these protests, the demands that they made that were in connection with that. I think we have to do that here as well, too. The other part we need to make sure is it can be civil disobedience. It can be just regular protests and rallies. We've been doing a lot of those around town. But I think we need to accelerate those. But I think the key point, though, is we got to build the number of people who are participating. Mm-hmm. So we've done several of these, in front of USAID or NOAA or other departments and agencies. But if you remember back to the Black Lives Matter protests, we had thousands of people coming out for those protests across the country. I think we need to build that out and make sure we're doing more with those. But in the interim, though, here in Congress, we have votes that we can have opportunities to have an impact on. Last Friday was one of those with respect to the CR. I think we missed a big opportunity there. We've got some more coming up with respect to the budget reconciliation and the like. Those are tougher because those are just simple majorities as opposed to a 60 vote, the cloture vote that you need in the Senate. But when we have these opportunities, we've got to make the most of them. And I think that's a big piece of what people were frustrated about was what happened last week.
Right. And you mentioned that you've gone out in front of some of these agencies and protests. So clearly constituents are saying that's not enough. We want to see more from our Democratic leaders. They're upset. I mean, you see the historic low 29% approval rating. And you've actually said that it might be time for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step aside. Who should replace him?
Well, that's not my call. I'm in the House. But I mean, I think the bottom line was the frustration.
There have been calls for AOC to primary him and so forth. Would you like to
Well, I think that's 4 years away. And the point we got last night was they can't wait till 2026. They need help now. And so I think the focus needs to be on what we do now. For example, I've got a Medicaid roundtable we're going to do later today that tries to draw attention to that because we're going to have these individual votes coming up. And I think it's important for us to see if we can have an impact on those. So, for example, some of the places where you've seen Republicans backing away from what Trump's doing, are districts where Harris carried the majority in those districts. I think if we target those, and we are, in the DCCC and Leader Jeffries, let's focus on the districts where we can win those and get the majority back come 2026. But if we can change the votes now that are leading up to that because they're starting to be concerned about their political support, we can have an impact on these votes as they're coming through now. So I think the future is now with respect to trying to have an impact on these things. I'm all for the community protests and impact. I'm all for the courts. But we've got a job to do in Congress. And I think if we step up and get more coordinated and enhance our communications and stick together, we can get those things done.
All right, Congressman Glenn Ivey, thank you for coming on the show.
you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We took our fan